His whole life in Anglesey was plagued by chapel debts. Chapels rose. It had to be so, as people in scattered villages thronged to hear the word. Hundreds were brought into church fellowship. Chapels that had been built had to be enlarged, and on Christmas Evans the whole burden of the cost seems to have fallen. He had no money, but he was well known, eloquent, popular. So Christmas Evans was the name on which the money was lent. But then the interest was due, or the debt had to be paid. What then? He must go forth to the south of Wales and beg money from the richer churches. This is why year after year there were those long, lonely journeys on his horse through wild regions where sometimes he met not even a solitary traveller throughout the day. "Jack," he would say to his faithful horse, "we have only to cross one low mountain, and there will be oats, water, and a warm stable." And Jack would neigh his appreciation. For many years he went twice annually to the south, once to the vast association meeting, wherever it may be, and once in winter on his begging tour. Occasionally Catherine accompanied him, and he would be away weeks at a time. We pause to think for a moment on these journeys. Through mountain villages, past ruined castles and monasteries, now turned into barns, through wild and beautiful scenes, narrow glens where mountain torrents roared. Often these journeys were through storm and rain, sometimes far into the night. Uncomplainingly he went on, for he loved his master and his work, and the Lord was with him, sometimes reviving frozen churches, sometimes planting new ones, sometimes commencing new preaching stations. Travelling on horseback, he was able to read, and even more to meditate, and he owed much to the good sense of his beloved horse, that he seldom lost his way, and was never late. Just one instance is mentioned when his horse, feeling thirsty, wandered off the road into a nearby river or pond to drink, and Christmas Evans was awakened from his meditations to find the water almost up to the tops of his boots. During these journeys he studied hard so that he might be able to preach in English. He had been able to read some of the English divines while still in Llŷn, but it was not till he was 33 that he began to grapple with English grammar. "My English was very broken," he says, "and yet it was my ardent wish to be able to preach in it. I made it a matter of prayer, as I never succeeded in anything without doing so. This the Lord in time enabled me to do. I was about 40 years of age when I learned to read my Hebrew Bible and Greek Testament. In the homes of the people, he was happy with the poorest of food. His favourite porridge was all he wanted, and sometimes the conditions were very primitive. The prophet's chamber in one place was so flimsy that he woke one morning to find his feet protruding through the wall and almost hit by a passing cart. It was in the houses of the poor that he was able to indulge in one of his hobbies, collecting recipes for medical treatment, either of men or horses. It is said that on some of his papers, along with remarks on some deep point of theology, might be found a recipe for the cure of asthma that he had picked up on his journeyings. Also, he loved gathering specimens of herbs on his travels, or alternatively showing his skill in sharpening razors or knives. There was nothing of the great preacher about him. In this way, he travelled from north to south some 40 times. He always preached once each day of the week, twice on the Lord's Day. Of course, vast congregations welcomed him, but the collections were normally very small. And he had the indignity of having to stand at the door after sermon, hat in hand, to take his own collection. On one occasion, though, he did have a good collection. Preaching in the district notorious for sheep stealing, he spoke of this great evil, and at the end pleaded with the people. If you have been guilty of sheep stealing, please do not put any money in the collection. Needless to say, not a person passed him that night without making some contribution. There was frequently complaint from the ministers in the south that he came too often begging, but only in this way were the chapels of Anglesey and North Wales built. The burden he carried was very heavy. He wrote, I had only £17 a year for all my services. The other preachers were young and inexperienced, and the members threw all the responsibility on me, as children do upon a father. My anxiety often moved me in the depths of the night to cry out to God to preserve his cause from shame. God's promises to sustain his cause in the world greatly comforted me. I would preach for the divine promises to this effect and plead them in prayer until I felt as confident as if every farthing had been paid. Like the Apostle Paul, he could speak of the care of all the churches. But what blessings did he know in his own soul as he went on his solitary journeys, alone, yet not alone? And what blessings were there in the huge gatherings in some of those remote and lonely spots where, without a trace of humour, the announcement in winter would often be, Mr. So-and-so will preach next Lord's Day, if he comes.